time for RoadWorthy Drive with Ken Chester.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our weekly visit behind the scenes here in studio, here with the RoadWorthy Drive crew, Jack at the controls,
Hello.
Sasha at mic 2, and yours truly. As usual, we've got a full hour of things to talk about. Some of those topics, rear seat safety. Sasha learned something that was actually a little newsworthy, and we're going to get into that, and a larger discussion of what's going on with rear seat safety, things that we'd never talked about here on the show, but it's time, and we will. I'm going to talk about my favorite pet peeve, the so-called human safety drivers and autonomous cars. Yeah, I got some issues with that. We'll talk about that and get some closure on that Uber accident finally. And then lastly, there's a Smackdown going on in California, and it involves the state of California versus the Federal Environmental Protection Agency. They want to take back something that Congress legislated California's right to do, and they don't want to do it no more. So we'll see what happens. All of that and more right here on RoadWorthy Drive behind the scenes. We're glad you could be with us. Okay, people, 11 minutes?
11 minutes on
11
the clock,
minutes.
please.
And a hard rain outside.
I know, that's what I was laughing about. I was just out there.
And if you look out, it's sunny to the north.
Yeah, there's like nothing. Yeah, that's why I was laughing, folks, because I pointed to Jack. I was just outside, and it was bright, sunny, and then it's literally like pouring down rain. And we're
torrential.
And then, like on one window, it's torrential rain. On this one, it's just kind of, rain.
Not so much.
Yeah.
Ready?
Okay, people, 11 minutes.
Here we go.
Okay.
Do you want to go faster? Yeah!
It's time for RoadWorthy Drive with Ken Chester. Ken is a nationally syndicated automotive journalist and photographer who has been in and around the industry for over 30 years. So tune in for your fill of automotive information and entertainment with your automotive ringmaster, Ken Chester.
Real facts, real opinions, real talk. Welcome to another episode of RoadWorthy Drive. I'm your host, Ken Chester. I'm so glad you chose to be with us. Every week, we cover the latest breaking news and technology concerning what moves us. And trust me, it's a vast, exciting, and changing world out there. As usual, we have plenty to get to, including our rummaging around for news from the parts bin. But first, for those of you who want to add your voice to the conversation, call or text me via the RoadWorthy Drive line. That number, 872-222-9793. It's good anytime. If email is your preference, my address is ken@roadworthydrive.net. Either way will connect you to me and the show. We are in studio with the RoadWorthy Drive crew at full strength.
Maybe.
Full strength, really?
Maybe.
You're not? Okay. Well, from the man with a steady hand on the controls and the maybe in his mind, my friend and RoadWorthy Drive executive producer, Jack DeLeon, and at mic 2, the sweet, sassy hostess of the social media only show Wheels of Non-Consent, the mysterious one from that undisclosed location.
Which you just disclosed.
Actually, I didn't.
You said on mic 2.
Yeah, yes. But we don't know where you came in from.
Where is Mike 2?
I don't know. Is it even in the studio?
I don't know.
I hear this voice, this feminine voice just ringing through the studio. Anyway.
Because your headsets are too loud.
That could be. Lady Sasha. Howdy, my peoples.
Hello, Ken.
Hi, bud. Hey,
yes.
two things.
Yes.
Number one, I wanted to know, because I didn't see this anyplace in the script,
Uh-huh.
we lost your best friend, Sergio, this week.
First of all, not my best friend, and I'm being kind.
Okay.
I will leave it at this. The auto industry as a whole reveres the man for turning around Fiat Chrysler, which, in fairness, he did, and have them largely out of debt. While you may not appreciate his choices for what brands to support and what brands not to, the man was really kind of in a trick bag in that the industry turned full towards SUVs and pickup trucks.
Yep.
And passenger cars weren't selling.
Yep.
So while there is some question on whether Dodge or Chrysler as brands will have a future, and even Fiat will have a future in the future, the man did what he had to do to preserve the company, and there are a lot of people grateful today across the United States of America that still have a job because of that man.
Yep.
So
And I hate seeing anybody go out the way he went out.
yeah.
Because I've had 2 people in my family that have died of a stroke.
Mhm.
So, okay, number 2.
Yes.
Hopefully in 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
we are going to have a major announcement to make.
Actually, we'll be making that announcement probably in a week.
I thought it was 2 weeks.
No, actually, we have to make it
Am
in a week.
am
for
I
them.
behind a week again?
You are.
You are.
I'm,
Yes.
I'm
But
sorry.
in any case, Jack is right.
And
We've
we can't tell you, ha,
we,
ha, ha.
We got something brewing. It's going to be exciting. May give you a chance, in fact, to meet us, but we can't tell you anything about it yet until we get that confirmed by the suits.
You want a hint? Yes, please. How long can you tread water?
Not nearly long enough.
Not nearly long enough.
Not nearly
Okay,
long enough.
Ken,
We're going to
what-
the ocean?
What is in
And
the
no,
park?
dear, we're not.
What is in the park been this week?
What if I told you that the communist country of Vietnam has an automaker,
That would not surprise me.
and that the head of their automaking operations used to work for General Motors?
Okie dokie.
It's called VinFast, and they're going to unveil an Italian-designed crossover and sedan at the upcoming Paris Auto Show. They
When
want-
is the Paris Auto Show?
Well, from what I understand, it's coming up soon. I'm not sure the exact dates, but basically, the crossover they want to introduce is similar in size to the BMW X5, while the sedan is about the size of an Audi A6. Both vehicles have been designed by Italy's Pininfarina, and they've been known. They're a design house that's been legendary for
Yep.
And we
years,
talked about
Yep.
them before on the show.
and will use German technology. Now, the company VinFast is part of a larger Vietnamese conglomerate, Vin Group, and it's led by a guy by the name of James DeLuca, former vice president of manufacturing for General Motors. And this is a quote: "We have the resources, scalability, and commitment to become a significant new player in the global automotive industry." They signed a deal with GM in June to take over their factory in Hanoi, along with their dealer network and employee base. But that's not all. They are building a brand new plant in northern Vietnam at a cost, American dollars, $1.5 billion. That's with a B.
Wow.
So they're going to end up having 2 plants, but that's still more. Magna International is a well-known, rather large Canadian automotive supplier. They do business with pretty much all the automakers around the world.
Okay.
They're carrying out the technical development and vehicle engineering for the SUV and sedan. And right now they're calling it for gasoline engines, and those engines are going to be developed by an Austrian company. Now, once they get these launched, they're looking at launching 2 mini cars, one electric, one gasoline, again, designed by another firm called Ital Design. And they had won a competition after showing designs judged by the Vietnam public.
Okay.
These guys ain't playing. They're looking at launching these, I guess, as 2020 model year vehicles at the end of 2019. They're looking at annual production by 2025 of 500,000 vehicles, with an initial output between 100,000 and 200,000. Here's the thing I want everybody to remember. This is the last quote of this piece. It also plans to export to foreign markets. They didn't specify, but
GM.
yeah, first and second largest markets in the world.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't have to paint that picture, do I?
No.
Okay.
Next.
Daimler, the parent of Mercedes-Benz.
Right.
Yep.
These guys ain't playing. They actually are teaming up with 2 different companies. One, NVIDIA, NVIDIA,
Right.
which develops a lot of the background and platform systems for semi-autonomous and fully autonomous cars. They're teaming up with Daimler, NVIDIA System, and Bosch, which is a German part supplier, to deploy self-driving taxis in California's Silicon Valley next year.
Nice.
Is part of a test program for fully automated vehicles designed for city driving.
Okay.
Their pilot project will demonstrate how mobility services such as car sharing, ride hailing, and their words, multimodal platforms can be intelligently connected to the shape to shape the future of mobility, so they say. And they're using NVIDIA's our AI platform, their artificial intelligence platform,
Right.
the Drive Pegasus system,
Yep.
to do it. But that's not all they did. Mercedes-Benz also turned around, and they have a deal with Chinese company Beidou, deepening an autonomous partnership using the connectivity services into Mercedes-Benz infotainment system. They joined forces last year to develop Apollo, a self-driving platform which has the goal of accelerating autonomous vehicle research and promoting the drafting of related laws and regulations. They're also testing fully autonomous vehicles in Beijing. So here's a company hedging their bets in the first and second largest car markets in the world.
Okay.
And the reason why I say all that is that we are in a transportation and mobility is a global business.
Yes, it is.
It has global impact. Used to be that if you were in a different country doing something, you might see it happen in America, you might see it happen in China, but not necessarily.
When did Toyota and Honda come over? Was it in the late 70s, early 80s?
They built plants in the early 80s as a result, ironically enough, of what we called saber rattling by Congress to throw up tariffs. They voluntarily agreed to limit the number of vehicles in 81 and 82 to about 2.2 million vehicles. As a result, shortly thereafter, they built car plants. Now, Honda was already here with the motorcycle plant, but Toyota came, Honda came with their car plants, Nissan came. And that's what happened. That's what tariffs do and can do. But right now, with this global thing, it's not that simple. Things don't come from just one country. They come from a little bit of everywhere.
Yep.
So we're going to see what happens, and that's why I wanted to make the point about the Vietnamese company, why I wanted to show you how Daimler is hedging their bets around the world. They're not just putting all their eggs in one basket. Now, find out next what Sasha discovered during her test drive this week and why it's a very important thing, although we have never discussed it until now.
Real facts, real opinions, real talk. This is RoadWorthy Drive.
This is RoadWorthy Drive.
That was a really sharp-looking car.
Mm-hmm.
That was. Did they happen to name a price or
No,
any kind of the
they're
tag?
not there yet.
No.
They won't be there for another year.
And these are going to be gasoline, not electric.
At first, yes.
Okay.
And they didn't talk about autonomous, but that's usually what's on the plate and usually designed into, if you're starting from scratch now, you're baking that into your future plans. You're baking that into your platform. So
You have to.
yeah, food for thought. And that's the thing. I mean, who would have thought? We've been out of Vietnam now, what, 48 years-ish?
Well, no, 74 wasn't it?
70, it was either 73 or 70. No, it was 70. No, it was 73. Because it happened, Nixon got us out. He was still in office.
Yeah.
So it had to be 73.
Okay.
And Saigon fell 3 weeks after that.
Yeah.
All that money was spent.
And the only thing I remember about that pullout was them trying to get those last people onto the helicopter.
Yeah, that was messy. You've got our jingle set.
Hold on. I've got to go find our jingle set. Give me a moment, please.
Yeah, that it's very interesting to me how many different countries are getting into that kind of tech. And
Yeah,
I'm
stick around for next hour. I'm gonna blow your mind.
Here today, the young American, Rambler
I did
American.
that.
What was that? What? That doesn't sound good. That never sounds good.
Oh, come on, dude. Cancel. Let's try it again. There we go.
Hooray.
1 moment, for favor.
Oh, I'm going to reset that for 9.
Okay, sir. Are you ready?
I am, sir. You've got the jingle set?
69, whatever it is.
69, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mercury.
Yeah, the Merc.
The Mercury.
The Merc.
All right. All right, Chief. Let's do this. 9 minutes, people.
9 minutes on the clock, please.
Okay.
Clock will start when you hear the music.
Hey, look at us now. We've got the winners and how. Lincoln Mercury leads the way.
Lincoln Mercury leads the way for 1969 with the Marquis, the most dramatically styled automobile since the Continental Mark III. Marquis, a completely new look in medium-priced cars.
Lincoln Mercury leads the way.
Here's another winner from Lincoln Mercury, Mercury Monterey, completely restyled for 69. Longer, more luxurious than any Monterey before, with the kind of hushed, quiet ride you'd expect from the makers of Lincoln Continental. Mercury Monterey, the all-new Marquis, each one a big, beautiful reason why
Lincoln Mercury leads the way.
At the sign of a cat.
Right?
Just saying. That was their tagline.
I remember that one.
Yep. You're listening to RoadWorthy Drive, home of real facts, real opinions, and real talk. I'm your host, Ken Chester. Thank you for dropping by. For this segment, I want to talk about rear seat safety. When I was a kid, my dad installed rear seat belts a few years before it was required as safety equipment. I learned early about the need to buckle up, and that was back in the 1960s. Today, we have chimes and visual indicators for the driver and front passenger, but what about the people in the rear seat? Sasha, what did you find out?
Well, I was doing my Wheels of Non-Consent with the 2019 Lexus.
ES, right?
Yeah, it was the
ES
350
Sport, F Sport.
Well, the F Sport is a package, and
Yes.
it was the first year that they allowed the F Sport on the ES.
Mm-hmm.
So when I got into the car, I had the kids in the back, and we rode, but there was a different indicator after I dropped the kids off, and it basically had a picture of the 3 back seats in red with an X going through it.
Okay. And what did you find out? Because I'd never seen anything like that before
Right.
you told me about it.
Right. What it is Lexus is actually putting in a system that it's based off of opening the back door
Mm-hmm.
in a certain sequence, and it will activate those.
Okay, so is the thing, I guess the question is, because there's really 2 issues here.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a seatbelt reminder system, or is it I left my kids in the back seat system?
It is a seatbelt reminder system.
Okay. Because what we've talked about this,
Yes.
is the fact that automakers in recent years, with the increase of babies and children, young children being left in hot vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
that automakers, particularly General Motors, have taken the lead in notification of the driver should, it's sense that there may be a child still back there to check the back seat.
Right. Well, and see, my thing as a parent, that's well and good, but also making sure that the children are still in their seatbelts
Mhm.
when you've got, the pesky 6-year-old, but, when they're in their booster seat.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was kind of nice. Evidently, it's not so much geared on to, there's a sensor in the door, but there's not one, and there's a sensor in the actual seat belts themselves.
Okay, but not in the seat.
Not in the seat. It's
So-
not weight generated.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, that just answered my question. I'm going to ask you, what does it do when you have groceries all over the back seat?
See, and that's what actually started it, is that the children were no longer in the back seat.
You had dropped them off,
I had
correct?
already dropped them off. And that's when the indicator light actually came on.
Now, to credit, Sasha did talk to Lexus. Lexus engineer said, as she explained it, that the engineer said that is a glitch. Now, I need to say that the vehicle that she evaluated for wheels of non-consent was a pre-production model. And they tell you specifically that with a pre-production model, it's mostly there, but there may be some things that yet need to be calibrated.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Up till now, I didn't even know there was such a thing as any sort of advanced seatbelt reminder systems. And in fact, we're behind schedule. For the record, and I'm not talking about the leaving a kid back there, about making sure the rear seats, if there's someone in the back seat, are buckled.
Similar to your passenger seat
Yeah, in the front.
in the front.
Or your driver's seat in the
Yes.
front.
Yep, or
It's-
the driver's seat.
Would you believe that these standards in Europe and Japan have been around since 2014?
We
and
are
that and
so
that
behind.
and that there was actually rulemaking
Yep.
by law for us to adopt it by now, but NHTSA has not gotten there, and in fact is currently being sued because of it.
Yep.
Yeah. 6 years have gone by since Congress passed a law calling on the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to develop standards for mandatory rear seat safety belt reminders. Yet, NHTSA has failed to act. One of the organizations filing the lawsuit is an organization called kidsincars.org.
Yep.
And this is different. Again, I want to make this differentiation. It is different from the leaving the kid in the back seat and, what I call hot baby issue.
Right, because the car is actually off. Okay, for that alert. The
Correct.
other one, the car is running. And go ahead, Jack.
Now, here's a question that I've got. We've had this happen exactly in the state. We've had a couple babies pass away because they got too hot. Are the car companies? I hate to use the luxury ones, but they're the ones that usually have the app.
Yeah.
Well,
do they have an app now that senses that there's somebody still in the vehicle?
let
let
me
you know.
Let me answer that question because it's different from the seatbelt issue.
Yeah, because there's
General,
one that's...
General Motors, Hyundai, and Nissan
Yep.
have devices. Hyundai's is a little bit different. The General Motors system and the Nissan system monitor whether rear doors have been opened or closed. Hyundai's new rear occupant alert uses sensors that detect movement in the rear seat.
Yep.
And that's some of the larger problem, is that even if you're in your belt, you have more freedom of movement back there as opposed to the front seat where you're in the seat. You're bolstered. You don't move.
Okay, but
Yes.
that child seat,
Mm-hmm.
does the child? I don't know this. I don't have kids.
Right.
Does the child seat move enough to set that off?
Well, and see, when they did like the video on it and when they were going through the sensors, they didn't specifically talk about like infant in like a rear facing car seat.
Let
You know
me
what I'm saying?
read this out because we're coming up near the break. To give you an idea, Hyundai's rolling out their rear occupant alert in select 2019 vehicles.
Yep.
GM introduced its own rear seat reminder in 2017 in the GMC Acadia, and now it's been expanded across Buick, Cadillac, Chevrolet, and GMC models. This past August, Nissan announced it would add a rear door alert to its 2018 Pathfinder, with other models to follow. Both GM and Nissan systems monitor rear doors for activity, and both display a reminder message on the instrument cluster as the driver is exiting the vehicle. GM's emits a series of chimes, while Nissan's can chirp the horn. Both can be deactivated. Hyundai's will be able to be shut off as well. So there's some room there, and like any new system, I'm sure they'll tweak it as they get feedback and as they get history with it. So a little bit of something there that really here we've never really talked about.
No, we never have.
But, it's important to note that rear seat safety is a thing, and NHTSA should have had it fully implemented by this past May. When it comes to human so-called safety drivers who monitor self-driving cars, I've been a skeptic. Still am. We'll revisit that topic again next.
Real facts, real opinions, real talk. We are RoadWorthy Drive.
This is RoadWorthy Drive with Ken Chester.
We're good.
Well, and see, here's the thing. We forgot to mention that that feature is going to be standard in all 2019 ES models.
Okay, well, you just mentioned it.
So
In the
there you
mic,
go.
in the mic.
The other thing is I've got to tout Hyundai. I think that their system is more accurate to the need right now. I'm really hoping that we get some kind of system set up, especially not so much, and it's not to deter from those that have children with a full-size car. But if you've got a van or a three-row or four-row,
A Tahoe, a Suburban,
right,
something like
right. And we've all had them, 6, 7, 8, sometimes 16-year-old child that does not have their seatbelt on. Okay.
My vehicle don't move.
Okay, but I'm driving. I am driving my Suburban, Tahoe, Escalade. I'm driving my vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see the seatbelt in the third row all the way back behind the driver's seat?
No.
Do I have any way to know whether my child just decided that they were going to unhook it?
Do you have a tattletale in your house?
No.
Yeah, you kind of do.
Well, okay,
Deem
The youngest one.
somebody as the seatbelt police.
Well, and see, again, it's one of those things where it would be nice that when they rolled out the passenger side, that they also include something for the back seats. And again, I don't think it's as needed in a sedan because that literally is a glance in your rearview mirror.
But here's the thing. In terms of usage, rear seat compliance with seat belts is about 10 points below front seat, which U.S. is a little lower than overseas. We're about I want to say between 65 and 75% compliance. So it's about 55 to 65% compliance. But honestly, it starts with education. Back in the day, there was 5 of us, and there was no. My dad wouldn't have it. And for me, granted, we had a minivan, but, we didn't have 5, 6, 7 kids. But my premise is simple, and it went for the adults too. If you weren't buckled, we didn't move. And if you got crazy and unbuckled, I'll pull over.
Again,
and I'll stop.
My point is, if you have a child that unbuckles, I am too busy watching the road. And we have talked about distracted driving. So I guess on one side of the token, if you've got children that you think might be unbuckling themselves, then I guess don't
set
drive
them.
with your child.
No, set them up front next to you.
I can't sit them up because that's illegal. They have to be a certain weight and a certain height in order to be up in the front seat.
Unless you've got a rear-facing child safety seat
No.
or a booster seat.
Nope, because even in the front seat, you can only have them in the front seat if you do not have a back seat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh,
trust me.
in other words, a
Got 'em.
two-seater?
No, like a pickup truck that doesn't have a
Guess you'd
Extended cab.
yeah, that doesn't have the extended cab.
I guess
and
you'd
I
be
think
driving
you
a pickup.
actually get the exception if it older pickup, obviously, where I'm not sure what the term is, but they just had the 2 seats that went off to the side.
Oh, the jump
jump
seats.
seats.
Jump seats, yeah. So if you've got a jump seat in the back, then also you get an exception to the
I
back
wonder-
seat.
That was an extended cab.
I wonder if they're going to bring that back when they bring back the Ranger.
No, I would guess that
Probably not. I would
no,
agree with you.
only because of safety issues.
Oh, yeah, right.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't make sense because they were never comfortable.
No,
right?
So
Oh,
you're
God,
gonna.
no. I've
It would be
ridden in one
cheaper to
before.
engineer a quad cab or crew cab from Jump Street to
Yeah.
start than to go back to that. It was one of those things like, why?
But
So-
Lexus was very, very nice about addressing the concern. That he was very, very prompt. I talked to 2 individuals, and they were very, very prompt with their answers. So it was really nice to know that automakers are striving towards that. But for me personally, as a parent, sensors in the back seat, and I would like some kind of latch key, like similar to the latch keys that are on the front seat, where if I take off my belt, ding, 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 and the indicator light. And I'm not saying that they have to have one for like every seat in the car, like a little diaphragm, but I am saying that something to alert me that one of the backseat buckles has become unbuttoned.
Here's the problem. If they're going to go that way, they have to. Because sure as I'm sitting here, they'd get sued for the one they didn't have.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. But we'll keep on this. This is a subject that we had not discussed before.
No.
There are 2 different issues the rear seat indicator for leaving a child back there, and then the seat belt indicator, which in our research had found out that was passed by Congress, the law, 2008. It was supposed to have proposals by 2014 and implemented May of this year.
And
has not happened.
And they did not make it, correct?
No. And Congress, again, it was a reminder system. It was not something that the way it was worded, okay, it's just to remind people in the back seat to buckle up. So it's not necessarily something that if somebody was to, like I just said, unbuckle themselves, that it would sense that. That's not technically in the wording.
But theoretically, if you're going to engineer it, you would engineer it the same way the front one.
I agree.
And that would be the only way they would. Because I guarantee you, one thing about automakers, with your average vehicle being the most regulated device that an average person uses every day,
absolutely,
that they're not going to open themselves up for potential legal liability, and that's kind of a no-brainer.
Right.
You would make the technology standard throughout the vehicle.
Well, and
what you do in the front, you do in the back.
Yeah.
You would have to. Now they brought up a point because of the different situations that happen in the back seat.
Yep.
They have to kind of address those particular issues. Like, for example, putting a briefcase back there, a heavy box.
Yep.
Something that's not an individual.
No, I mean, when I first got it, I honestly thought that it was sensor. So, I mean, we had fun. We were putting different things in the back seat, and I would throw like a pair of shoes, from the driver's seat. I would put a pair of shoes back there, and I was taking like men's shoes, cowboy boots. I was trying to find what the sensor, like how heavy did it have to be? And I'm going through all of these different things, and then the guy wrote me back, there's no sensors back there.
Oh, well.
Okay,
people.
One last question.
Yeah.
Okay.
At what point in time is NHTSA going to come up with a standard that everybody has to follow, and it includes A, B, C, and D?
When you say a standard, are you talking this specific situation?
I'm talking about, let's just use child in the car.
Okay.
The industry standard, as far as I'm concerned, my opinion matters, should be that either the car is going to chime at you. If you lock the car and the child's still there, it is going to honk the horn and will not let you shut it off till you open up the
alarm.
car doors.
Like
right.
the alarm.
And in terms of leaving a car with sensors activated right now, GM and Nissan systems will do that.
Okay.
That's today. The problem is, like everything.
How do you account for every situation?
Yeah, and the problem is the automakers have to, because the one or two they don't find or they do,
they'll get sued
that's
over.
like maybe 1% of ever happening. That's the one that usually happens. That's the one that triggers a lawsuit. I'll close with this, and then we need to move on.
Yep.
Right now, NHTSA is being sued, as we mentioned earlier.
Yep.
Because they have not actually enforced and implemented what Congress passed. That is legislation, law of the land, legal.
That is now 10 years old.
Well, they had to have it fully implemented.
Congress gave
and it had
time.
to be, not so much 10 years old. They had to have it implemented by May of this year.
Yeah, it was done in.
Okay, so they had 8 years to do this.
They had a number of years because what you do, Congress passes the law. They develop a administrative guidance. This open for comments. They take those comments into consideration because Congress will usually give them the latitude in how to implement it. And then they'll get it to the manufacturers. The manufacturers usually will have a couple of years to get the engineering done, get it tested, get it validated, make sure it meets the standard, and then boom, the standard happens. And that has not happened.
Do you ever get the feeling that we need to go back to Schoolhouse Rock?
I know, right? I was just thinking that.
And explain how the standards are actually done.
NHTSA might need that.
I think the whole country needs that.
Yeah. Okay, people, third segment, 9 minutes. Let's do it. When you're ready, sir. Welcome to the downhill side of this hour of RoadWorthy Drive, home of real facts, real opinions, and real talk. I'm your mobility tour guide for the hour, Ken Chester. Thank you for taking the time to join us. For those of you who want or need more than your fair share of the road than our regular scheduled time together each week, check out our website, www.roadworthydrive.com. Learn about the RoadWorthy Drive Crew, videos of our behind-the-scenes shenanigans, in studio, and so much more. The website is also the place to discover where to find us in the world of social media. For those of you who like us on Facebook, we've recently developed a new social media-only video series hosted by our very own Sasha of the RoadWorthy Drive Crew. Sasha, why don't you tell the folks a little bit more about it?
Okay, so
Go for it.
Ken normally gets 1 to 2 cars a week, and I thought that it would be a great opportunity to show our fan base exactly what's out there for automotive tech, what's out there for what their dollars can buy, because a lot of people don't know. And I think at any given point, there's always going to be 1, 2, 10,000 people that are going to be looking to make that big purchase.
What?
Yes. And a lot of people aren't aware. I mean, if you're just wanting to spend $25,000, if you're only wanting to spend $35,000, you know.
Wait a minute, excuse me. Only 35,000?
Stop it. My Hyundai.
35,000. That's a little rich for me, but continue.
Anyway, it's one of those things where I wanted to give a dialogue to people, and I think we're actually going to delve into, like, you know, silly things like Bluetooth and stuff like that.
Bluetooth is silly now?
Well, kind of.
Well, no, it takes an awful lot to program it. And by the way, did you bring it back?
I mean, I'm still here. I mean, can't we just?
They couldn't find her.
We made it all the way.
They parked
through
it on the street the last time. Jeez.
Oh, and by the way, there was no GTA charge.
The what? The who? The?
GTA, Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, no, not this time. We found it a few blocks over. That's all I got to say.
What?
And moving on.
Folks, that's Wheels of Non-Consent exclusively on Facebook. You cannot find that anywhere else. Some people would be saying, thank God. For those of you who are extremely mobile, you can hear past shows on Google Play and Blueberry Podcasting. Be sure to check it out. Now, time for my rant.
The following is a Ken Chester rant. Views expressed do not reflect the editorial opinion of your station, of me, and of Sasha. Go on.
Why you got to be a hater like that?
I'm not being a hater.
I really think we need like the
No, we can do without that.
Oh, you mean this?
Yeah, no, I think we can do without that. Anyway, regular listeners know my take on these so-called human safety drivers.
For the autonomous vehicle?
For the autonomous vehicles.
Yeah, they're great, right?
Now, back in the early days, and I'm saying like from 2009 when Google started with Waymo to maybe even 2013, 2014, when they're trying to figure things out and the vehicle was moving like 10, 15 miles an hour.
Those are the early days?
Yeah, those were the early days. Way back, olden days, when the world was new and
when we had just given up the pony and the cart.
When we just figured out the wheel. My problem is you can't, if the vehicle is going 35 miles an hour.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Which is typical speed limit for what we call back east, thickly settled or residential.
Mm-hmm.
There ain't no way, even with both hands on the wheel as far as I'm concerned, if something came up where the vehicle's just puddling along and suddenly you have to be engaged all of a sudden.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That you're going to act in time.
Well, I mean, to be fair, are these bionic human hybrids?
No.
So these are standardized human beings that they are expecting to act faster.
After maybe hours of boredom.
Yeah, right. Because, I mean, we're all just thrilled watching the same thing at 35 miles an hour.
Are you saying that these guys are not watching their cell phones?
Okay, no.
They're not supposed to.
They're not
That's
supposed to.
the whole point.
Or watching us on YouTube?
No.
Right? Hi, guys.
Not while they're driving. Let's hope not.
But, I mean, he brings up a good point. I mean, they are expecting these people to act faster than the computer.
Let me throw this at you. This is some closure on the Uber thing that happened in Arizona.
Right.
Yep. Get this. Uber's car, it was a problem with the software that decides how the car should react to objects.
Yep.
It saw the woman.
Yep.
It was adjusted to ignore objects in the road.
What?
Yes. The car's sensors detected the pedestrian who was crossing the street with a bicycle,
Yep.
but Uber's software decided it didn't need to act right away. That's a result how the software was tuned.
It might have been, and I'm just putting this out there, the car might have done an algebraic expression and thought that the woman would be out of the road, something like that, but
No.
Okay, as I'm trying
No,
to pick my mouth up off the board.
let me throw this at you why it was did. According to Uber, the software has the ability to ignore what they call, quote, false positives, or objects in its path that would narrowly be a problem for the vehicle, such as a plastic bag floating over the road.
or puppy or kitten.
You know. Now, the tuning went too far, and the car didn't act enough. But here's my beef. Meanwhile, the human driver behind the wheel, who was meant to take over and prevent the accident, wasn't paying attention in the seconds before the car hit the woman at nearly 40 miles an hour. I contend unto you, even if they had both hands on the wheel and she came up like that, and you've been riding this thing for hours by yourself, that your mind would not react. You're talking about nanoseconds, not even tenths of a second.
Yeah.
Nanoseconds to respond. Now, in doing my research for this story, come to find out that some of the automakers up till recently only required a couple of weeks of training. I'm not even lying. A couple weeks.
Ken, tell me how you really feel.
At minimum wage?
Actually, no.
Okay.
They actually get paid by some of these companies up to $25 an hour.
Sign me up. I'm moving.
The problem is what they're going to now. Now, one of the folks was Cruise Automation.
Right.
And in May, when the story was done, they were only putting people through about 3 weeks of training. In June, when they went back to them with their filing with the state of California, yeah, they got the message and upped the training considerably, along with retraining. And in their case, they require 2 people to be in the vehicle. One to do the monitoring, so their eyes ain't on the road, and the other one on the road with both hands on the steering wheel. I still contend at 40 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And we're human. We get bored. I don't care how active you are and you're there staring at the road.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're staring at the road, how many times under certain situations, maybe after a long day, you're going home, your eyes are on the road, your hands are on the steering wheel, and you come to yourself and you don't realize you hadn't seen the last half mile,
Right.
2 blocks, 1 block, 100 yards. You don't even remember seeing it.
Are you saying the lights are on and no one's home?
Sometimes. And that's the scary part.
Yeah,
I
it is scary.
contend that I don't care where they go, and I understand why they're trying to do it, but a human will never act as fast for these systems
Nope.
at speed.
Then a
At
computer will.
speed than a computer will. So if the computer malfunctions, you're still up a creek, folks. That's my point. In this current environment, it was bound to happen. The state of California and the federal EPA are squaring off over vehicle emissions. The Cali Smackdown is next.
Real facts, real opinions, real talk. You're riding shotgun with the RoadWorthy Drive Crew.
RoadWorthy Drive with Ken Chester is America's premier automotive news and information talk show.
Well, and the other thing that, I'm not sure if that story reported it, but numerous people came out, and based on the video that they had, even if that kid had had his eyes alert, facing forward, hands on the steering wheel, 100% paying attention, she did not come into view until 1.79 or 2.79 seconds.
Do you realize?
Before she got hit.
Before she got hit. Because it was a dark street.
Yep.
There were no lights there.
It was not at a corner. It was in the middle of a block.
Right.
And here's the thing. From the time something happens, the time you even start to process, 2 seconds. In her case, it had been already too late. By the time he realized she was there, she'd been hit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because, it was so dark. We have watched it. We were, when we reported on it, we watched it.
And we've talked about pedestrian systems, and they talked about, in fact, the IIHS, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, we did this a couple weeks ago, talked about surveys that accidents happen in dark arterials in a block not in a crosswalk, at night, typically involving a crossover or SUV. All the recipes of what happened at Uber.
Yep.
All I'm saying is I find, and I'll be blunt, and maybe I'm wrong, and, people are welcome to their opinion, but as far as I'm concerned, human safety drivers at anything over 20 miles an hour are a joke.
Yeah.
I don't think you can act as fast to correct a malfunction. Now, if the vehicle stops and can't move because it's got an issue, that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I get that.
Yep.
But at speed, you think you're going to act faster than the malfunction in the computer. By the time you realize it, it's too late.
Now, I do have a question, Ken.
Mm-hmm.
When you were reading that story and it was talking about the employees that were behind the wheel on this groundbreaking technology, did they have to have prior education and
Yes.
Okay. So you're talking about, and I understand, 3 weeks, but these were people that already had,
Oh, they had to be vetted in terms of driving record, level of training. Now, pretty much all of the automakers now enlist longer training periods. And the more aware now require 2 people, not 1.
Yeah.
And that I think, if you have someone else in there at the very least, if you got 2 people in there, that should help your attentiveness, not less, because you're in there by yourself. They don't want you playing music. They don't want you doing anything. You can't look at your phone.
They don't
you
want
can't
you watching RoadWorthy Drive.
Not while you're driving. So in fairness, I mean, they've gone as far as they can, but Ford did earlier studies. And in Ford's studies on private grounds and evaluation, their test drivers kept falling asleep.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody, security guards, everybody's seen it. They sit there. They're supposed to look at these monitors. It's human nature.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
After a while, you're going to get bored.
Yeah.
Not even bored, but just,
I mean, your eyes are just going to be
heavy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your eyes are just going to be heavy.
Okay,
Hey,
segment number 4.
Hold on. Let me set my clock here.
So, yeah, I was actually curious to see if these were like MIT students, if these were
Not
people that
quite
were already.
Not quite that level, but you've got, let's see,
Did they ask for like an associate's or maybe so many years in technology?
GM calls
or
them automated
software?
vehicle technicians, or AVTs.
Right, I've heard that term. But
And there's constant training. But honestly, it don't really matter if you've got a degree or not. It's a level of attentiveness.
I think you can have all the training in the world, but Ken's right. If you aren't being attentive, there's a problem.
And you can't be now. What GM does, what they've done, the changes they've made, and then we'll move, is they've changed the shift so that there are breaks during the shift. That what they're trying to get done in terms of evaluation can all be done in that shift. So you're not doing it and trying to evaluate at the same time.
Right.
And they require 2 drivers. So all steps in the right direction, but I still think long periods, it's like what they tell you when you're driving on the road. They said if you're on a long trip, take a break every 2 hours.
Yep.
Mercedes-Benz has something called
no. It's the one where it scans the retinas, right?
Yeah, and I'm trying to think what it's called.
Oh.
Driver assist, no. It's something, awareness assist.
There
That's
it is. Yep.
It's awareness assist, where it actually looks at your retinas and looks at your steering pattern, and if it thinks you're drowsy and wandering, it will actually ding at you and ask you, time for a break?
Oh, I just thought it was going to hand me a coffee.
Right?
No.
Ding.
It will encourage you to pull over.
Can we get a coffee maker? I mean, is that an option?
No.
Like a Frappuccino
No.
machine?
That's a distraction.
Absolutely.
Okay, what if they took away the glove box, which we
No.
never use or the little cabin box that's right there, and then it just kind of rose up?
Sasha, let it go.
Excuse me.
With an
Here's
espresso?
the problem.
Let it go,
Here's
Sasha.
the problem.
Yes, sir.
McDonald's lawsuit because coffee was hot.
What?
Don't get me started.
Nope. That woman, the water was
Be
Okay.
nice.
People,
Mm.
people, we're going to let that go. 8 minutes, 50 seconds.
8:50.
Okay, last segment, first
And
hour.
see, ladies and gentlemen, what I have to put up with every week.
Oh, my God. We're treating him nice this week.
He's wrong about the coffee, though. It was beyond boiling. They had numerous warnings about the
Canvas. All right, we're done. Let's
I'm either going to buy a wrestling or a boxing bell to get you two to stay on tap.
Oh, no. Sasha's in rare form this afternoon.
Oh, yes, she is.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And by the way, this is RoadWorthy Drive. He's Ken. I'm Jack. She's Sasha.
I am Sassy Sasha.
Still. Real facts,
sassy.
real opinions, and real talk. Trust me. Yeah, really. Welcome to the last segment for this hour of RoadWorthy Drive. And like the man said, I'm Ken Chester. As we wrap up this hour of our weekly visit, I thought I would talk about the showdown that's shaping up between the state of California and the Federal Environmental Protection Agency, better known as the EPA. Did you know that Congress originally issued the state of California a waiver from the Clean Air Act when it was passed in the early 1970s?
Right.
With waiver in hand, California went on to impose stricter standards than the federal ones.
Yep.
And over time, a group of states in the Northeast also adopted the California standards.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, back in the day, you used to have the rest of the U.S. standards and California standards, sometimes referred to in the industry as 49+1. Now, as the federal standard became more stringent, and that was about 2009, there was actually regulation harmony until recently between California and the feds.
Now, on the window sticker of a new vehicle,
Mm-hmm.
it says 50 state emissions
That is right now.
right now. Okay.
Right now, as I mentioned.
And is that about to change?
Yeah. The administration plans to challenge the state of California is right to set its own fuel emission standards.
And let them know why.
Because they want to pull back the waiver granted to California as part of the Clean Air Act, which should be interesting since that was legislated by Congress. I don't think that a federal agency can take the waiver. Congress probably could, but they
well,
And it's not because they want California to rise up to the new standards, but they want to bring California back down.
No, actually, they want to take the whole country back down.
Yeah.
The bigger
oh, I didn't know that.
The
Yeah.
big thing they want to do is suspend and otherwise lock in the fuel economy standards and the emission standards for what was set for 2020 and scrub the 2025 standards.
Oh, that's how they're going to do this.
That's how they're trying to do this.
Okay. Can I just say this at this point?
Yeah.
I have been to California.
Mm-hmm.
I have driven to California. I have flown to California.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it from the air. I've seen it from the windshield.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
I've seen it from the air. I've seen it from the windshield. It's called, my term, brown haze or smog.
Actually, photochemical smog, and it has 700 different compounds in it.
It's still smog,
Yeah, but
which is not good to be breathing.
But
I'm
the problem is some of those compounds, they don't even know what they are.
Yeah. And
Wow.
that's what happens when you get multiple compounds in the air, and then, they
Add
merge
sunlight,
together.
mix together,
Yeah.
and let simmer.
Yeah. And my thing is that in certain parts of the country, as we are talking right now, California, they need to have higher standards in order to maintain a healthy existence for their constituents.
Okay, here's my question.
Go ahead.
Why does it seem like it's more of a problem in California and not in New York City?
Let's start with this.
No, we're going to take our answer.
Aw.
That has to do with wind patterns. It also has to do with the amount of what is it? There's something else that they do in California.
Well, number one, their gas pumps are completely different.
Okay, let me
No.
let me help you with that while she's thinking.
Okay.
Number one, California is the largest state market. They sold 2 million new cars and trucks last year in California alone.
Now, that was new. That's not combined.
Do they have a higher
That's just new.
Do they have a
cars
higher-
and light trucks?
cars per capita?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, the topography of California, particularly LA, is like a bowl.
Yep.
Which, with the way the weather patterns work, that smog is tailor-made to settle. Also, they are basically at 2 million. They sell as many new cars and trucks as all of Canada.
Wow.
Yeah, you've got a lot of vehicles out there. Now, the administration wants to also, they want to regulate greenhouse gas emissions, including its mandate for electric car sales. They want to take that away from California. California's going to court. They ain't even playing.
Nope.
Now, here's the problem with all of that. In the rest of the world, they're moving towards electric vehicles.
Yeah.
They're moving towards higher, stricter emissions. They're moving towards all this other stuff. If you are a global manufacturer, you want the United States to come up with one set of rules that hopefully is consistent with where the rest of the world is going. Why? Because this doesn't help automakers at all. Because if they have to take their assets and do this with it and that with it, then neither one of them is cutting edge and is actually throwing them back in the dark ages, making them less likely to compete. What people need to understand, the United States of America is 5% of the world's population. Hard truth, people, get over it. Second thing, at the same time, we're also the second largest auto market in the world. China's the largest and growing and going electric big time. And if you want to compete and you want to do business and you want to stay relevant, you better be on that.
Yeah.
Now, if you have to take resources to go backwards, then that's money you're not using to stay cutting edge, which makes you weaker as a company, not stronger.
Company or country?
Yes.
Okay. I just wasn't sure.
Not that I'm on my warpath or anything.
I'm right there with you.
But we were on track.
Yep.
Going to 50 miles a gallon by 2025. They want to scrap that, keep it at 35. They want to lessen or reduce emission standards by taking California's away. California had the right back in 1970. They've been doing it for 48 years.
With not a problem.
Yeah. So I got a problem with this. I don't believe in that every time you want to back down federal regulations, it's a good thing.
Okay, but didn't you just contradict yourself?
No.
When you said that we basically need 50 states on the same standard if we're going to compete in the world. Is that what I understood?
But not going backwards. Right now, current administration wants to roll stuff back.
Yeah, if we wanted to rise up to the standard that California has, absolutely, I'd be all for that. But trying to lower California to everybody else and then lower that even more?
That's where they want to do. And in addition, other major automotive, I can't talk. Other major auto markets such as China and Europe are pressing forward with tougher mandates of their own cleaner cars. Being standard helps everybody. Going backwards doesn't. That, my friends, wraps up this conversation for the hour.
Real facts, real opinions, real talk. This is RoadWorthy Drive.
RoadWorthy Drive with Ken Chester is a copyrighted presentation of the RoadWorthy Drive Radio Network. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or any other use is prohibited without the written consent of the Motor News Media Corporation.
Before we end this hour, I want to read you something. Caught somewhere in the middle are the automakers, which in recent months have stressed they would not support freezing federal targets and want Washington and Sacramento to continue linking their vehicle efficiency goals. While they spent the first year of the Trump administration attacking Obama's rules as too costly, they fear the regulatory uncertainty that a years-long court battle over a rollback would create. In addition, as I tried to say and couldn't, other major auto markets such as China and Europe are pressing forward with tougher mandates of their own for cleaner cars. If you are a global manufacturer, you want to take all your resources and put them to the greater good to be the most competitive you can be.
Yep.
If you have to divide those assets and divide that talent into doing less to meet those standards and doing more elsewhere, you're going to be a weaker company as a result. And to be blunt with you, if the automakers had to decide versus meeting standards for the world's largest automotive market and the second largest automotive market, guess what? You're going to get the stricter standards if you make them choose, which means they're not even getting any benefit from all of this action.
I got two questions.
Mm-hmm.
Who in their right mind would not want 50 miles per gallon? Like, I'm just curious because evidently
The oil companies?
I know that's right.
Not necessarily. More and more of the oil companies are actually investing in alternative fuels and alternative technologies. And they're some of the biggest investors of that. We talked about Shell. We talked about BP.
Yep.
We talked about even ExxonMobil's getting honest.
But here's my other question. And we talked about this. We had a whole show about how it is a global environment. Your Ford, your Chrysler, your, name, GM. They are a global vehicle. They are not a vehicle that was 100% done here in the United States. They're not even, what was the highest percentage there, Mr. Chester?
65%.
Thank you. So, I mean.
That was Honda.
I know, right? Not even an American brand.
Actually an American brand in Marysville since 1983.
You know what I mean.
No, I don't.
Okay. Ford.
We're not going to go right
Thank
there.
you. Anyway, my point is people need to understand, and this is going to be a time where they're going to get the full ugly truth. This is a global situation. This is not a country situation. And like he said, if companies have got to divide up that I can only sell this car here and I got to sell these other cars over here to the rest of the world, guess what's not going to be here?
Enough said, people. On that note, on behalf of Jack, Sasha, and myself, thank you for joining this lively edition of RoadWorthy Drive Behind the Scenes. We're going to see how this turns out. Personally, the crew's rooting for California.
Amen.
At least two of us are anyway. We'll see you next week. Take care. Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Bye-bye.